Good evening and welcome to the school committee meeting of March 13, 2019. As always, also, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Second. 2019. Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Maura isn't here this evening. I believe that she had something to do with student council, or that might have been Monday evening, but she will be back for our next meeting, so we will hear our student advisory report then. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. I just wanted to give a brief mid-year goal update from where we're at. I looked at the calendar and realized we're into March already, and I think my end of the year evaluation's in 2 months. So I just wanted to let you know where we're at in my mind. If you need something in writing, I'm going to draft this up and send the committee an email of where I think where I've been at. So goal number 1, to monitor, evaluate, and support Pillar 2 of the district plan for success, a cohesive PK-12 system of teaching and learning. Where we're at right now, part of the goal was to complete the math pilot, which we are in the process of completing and gathering feedback so we can tell our teachers what program we'd like to purchase, budget pending, at the end of the year. We are also looking at different programs to pilot in ELA for next year. Our reading specialists, our English department, K-12 curriculum coordinator, the elementary principals, and teachers have been involved all this year in determining what pilot we'd like to do next year. Part of this goal was also to really look at our K-12 curriculum structure and who leads that structure. Through negotiations with Unit B, we reevaluated and changed the structure, putting our curriculum leaders back 6 through 12 as department chairs, and hoping to get an elementary curriculum leader, again, budget pending for next year. So those are 3 things in Pillar 2 that I think we're accomplishing. I hate to say it's budget pending, but it's budget. It will how successful these goals are will depend upon our final budget in May.
I'd just like to say, though, that those 3 pieces that Jeff talked about, the math, the ELA pilot, the restructuring for curriculum coordinator, are at no increase to the budget. That was done by restructuring. Thanks,
George. Goal number 2, to be visible throughout the district to support administrators, teachers, staff, and students. I think if you see weekly, we're out and about looking at teachers that make a difference and celebrating that. I have scheduled visits with principals formally to discuss things, and informally I pop into buildings to see what it is. I think that's Ernie's worst time of the day is when I'm out and about in the buildings and he receives texts from me about what I see as far as a door, as far as a ceiling, or why is this dripping here and whatever. But it's important for me to be out visible to teachers and staff and to students, and it's pretty cool when I can walk into the cafeteria and kids already know who I am, and I'm not just the guy. So I think that's part of it. I want to continue to do that, and that's not a flash in the pan. I'd like to get into more classrooms. This year I've stayed away from the classroom experience with some of our new principals because I wanted them to set up their own autonomy so that it's not the superintendent walking in with a new principal observing a classroom. I've hit a couple. What I can say to the committee is our teaching is phenomenal. I actually had my coach observe a class with me the other day, and he was blown away by the level of instruction in a 1st grade class and a 5th grade class. So we're doing a good job out there, and I can visibly tell you and tell you what I see. We're doing some good things.
And if I can interject again, sorry, boss.
He does this all the time.
But when you see visual evidence of staff working hard and doing a good job, that is in the absence of an elementary ELA curriculum that we don't have, and that is with an expiring 7-year-old math program that is obsolete for today's students and today's standards. So I just wanted to make sure we realize that.
And I'll also add to, we cut our no atom budget in science as well. So we used to budget 100 grand for no atom, and when that was grant funded, we're down to 50. So we've cut that piece of our curriculum in science as well. Goal number 3 is to improve and create open lines of communication in conjunction with Pillars 3, safety, security of students and staff. I'm on a text basis with all 4 chiefs. We also established a district emergency communication weather team so that anytime there's a weather-related issue, whether it be power, wind, rain, snow, I'm on with all the locals. I think it's a 13-person chat, which we get information back and forth. So that's there. One of the pieces, and we talked about it a little bit at facilities, there's a new grant coming out from the governor's office. I'm looking at communications internally as well. We have a relatively antiquated radio system here. It works sporadically in district. What I'd like to have is a really good communications program and equipment so that we can communicate with all local PDs, fire, and I know with the new cell service going in Hanson, that should help us in this goal. The other pieces of that, the committee looked at our ALICE program for elementary school. This is something I haven't rolled out yet. We're into March, April. That's one of the pieces of the goal that I haven't rolled out to elementary. It's up and coming to make sure our kids are safe. Goal number 4, to develop a workable budget that will deliver services and create opportunities for the students of Whitman and Hanson so that they're prepared for higher education, workforce, and military. It's out there right now. And I appreciate the support of what we're looking at for level services right now. As we progress through, I think looking at a realistic budget that will maintain the level of service and add, without adding to the budget, the curriculum and curriculum leadership that we desperately need is part of this goal that I hope, with your help, I can achieve at the end of the year.
Questions for the superintendent? Chris?
Yeah, so a little bit of a question, more of an observation. So as I listen to you speak, I know you're the self-proclaimed chief advocate of students, did I get it right? Or chief kid advocate, what is it?
Chief Child Advocate.
Chief child advocate.
Got it.
Get it. So I think, look, I know there's a lot going on right now. So I think if and when the opportunity presents itself, I think trying to set up maybe some time for some of the members of the committee to observe without getting in the way, I think is really helpful. We spend a lot of time talking about dollars and cents, spend a lot of time talking about buildings, but the reason we're here is for the education of children. So to the extent there's any way we can share a glimpse of that at some point, I think that would be very helpful for all of us, and then I think it allows us to maybe think about how we can share that message back to the public, because it's so much of it gets lost. And I remember, first year on the committee, Ruth took me around. My first reaction was, oh my God, special education has changed so much in such a short time. And so we can talk about the dollars, but sometimes a picture or a view is
I agree.
worth more than
100%. And as that, it's an open, so you're my 10 evaluators here. You tell me when you want to come in. I'll free up anything. You know what I mean? Because I think it's important for you folks to see that first grade teacher.
Yes.
Or that 5th grade teacher who's doing the wah-wah and the ah-ah, and every kid in class is saying it simultaneously. Goosebumps, you know what I mean? Or the high school class that you're doing AP literature and they're reading and they're analyzing things that we can only hope to. So anytime you folks want to see the facility, but see the active teaching in here, I think you hear George and I talk, we're passionate about it, we see it, love it. We love every day of it. But for the committee to see and then be able to go back to the community anytime, any day, 15 minutes, pick a place where we want to go. I'll get you some coffee and we'll walk around. The building principals would love to showcase what they do as well. I know that.
Fred?
And to harp on Chris, you get so much out of it. I can recall the last time I toured, and we're in an art class. And to me, art was you take a piece of paper and you draw, and I never did it well, but that's okay. And they've got PowerPoint up there, and they're talking about color palettes and what this color can mean in a presentation. This is 5th graders. So school has changed so much for us, and I've said it a lot to convey that to the public as well. How much different today's school is and what kids are learning and when they're learning it compared to when we went to school. I get scared when the grandchildren are there doing their homework because you never know what challenges you can face. The other thing I'd like to see, and, you know, Mr. Hayes, you can maybe hop in on this, is a separate subcommittee that, call it the Improvement Committee, the Wish List Committee, whatever we want to do. If we take our strategic plan, and we take our pillars, and we try and align them to little goals, so that we can start working with the budget August, September. We know, or we should be able to know, and I know we've got to get through where we are today first, but get through this budget season, get a clear idea from the towns of where we're going to be for a sustainable budget and where we can be for increments of what we can pick up. And also thinking outside the box, we need an ELA program. Can we do that on an exclusion and maybe not be faced? I know I mentioned this Monday night about our math program, and one of the fears is if it doesn't go through, what do we do? So maybe we can be a year ahead of the game, you know, so to speak, and we can start planning a little bit more ahead as well.
Thanks.
Anyone else? I agree with both of you, all of you. We spend way too much time dealing with a budget, and we sometimes, I mean, I'm probably the longest person on this committee, and I remember, believe it or not, when we started with the budget and kind of ran right through it. It wasn't as difficult as what it's been, and part of it, Chris, you hit on the head, and Fred did too. Education's changed in the last 15 years. With the demands and the social economical issues and the IEPs, it costs more, it demands more, and this is part of how everybody's in this budget crisis. It's the same with local police and fire services. I spoke with one of the chiefs today, and he said, we do 13 calls a day average, we used to do 4. It costs more. It's just, it's a true hard fact, so nobody's put the blame here. I think everybody wants better education for every student, every day. So, okay. Any more questions for the superintendent?
Just a brief update on the North River Collaborative. Met with the Board of Directors last week. We affirmed their budget for next year, some salary increases and decreases of what they have to do. They are going through the strategic planning process, planning for success that we did. So they're in the grassroots. The former Dr. Whitner is leading the charge over there, so they are doing the same process as we are. We just did a Back to the Future exercise with the board. I'd like to see some different things from the collaborative in the future. One is expanding their elementary program so that they will be, right now they have a 6 through 12 program for our students. Their elementary program is fragmented out and about. They don't have space necessarily on their campus for an elementary program unless they redesign how they do things in their school. But that would be a benefit for us in the future if North River actually did a K-5 or a K-4 elementary program. The partnership is still very strong. We use them, and they are a major provider of our transportation services right now, and hopefully that will remain in the future.
Any other questions? Jeff, I think one more thing when you were doing your pillars that we didn't discuss that the committee should probably know. MASC has asked Whitman Hanson, and they're working with Ruth as the ex-superintendent, the current superintendent, and myself to propose a video to pass out to school committees and other programs about what goes on here, how it's gone on, superintendent programs, and how we've moved forward through it as a pilot. And they're looking at some of the things going back in the years of what's gone on at Whitman Hanson, and then how we've moved forward and tracked it. So it's kind of extensive. We had a call the other day with Julia.
Carla Bear.
Carla, and
She's working for DESE to really look at the superintendent's evaluation. And I took what we talked about in October about maybe shifting some things up on what we have done here in the future. So Bob and I will do a short video for them. Ruth's going to add some stuff. But so today I had superintendent training. I call it superintendent training. It's a new induction program. And it's hard to believe that probably 40% of the 42 new superintendents, there's no evaluation process within their districts. It's either a rubber stamp at the end, there's no conversation, there's no goal setting. So DESI is really looking hard at the 357 districts to make sure people are in alignment with the goals of the evaluation process, and superintendents are being evaluated fairly throughout the Commonwealth. So we're part of that process.
Part of the process with it is superintendents move frequently in districts. So lots of times they get a superintendent that comes into a district that's typically in, using the word crisis is probably close, and it takes a superintendent to figure out what's going on, and by the time they figure out what's going on, they never get evaluated and they've moved on.
Correct.
And that evaluation piece is a big thing to determine whether the school committees are getting the right bang for the buck and the districts are performing, whether it's a regional district or a single district, because it's tough to do an evaluation on a superintendent that's totally 100% running backwards. So it's a program they're trying to promote, and they're kind of working with us a little bit to see if we can't get it online and get it going. So that's another thing for the communication piece that Jeff's doing with MASC. Any other questions?
Any other if no other questions, Christine, the expenditures and revenue report, please.
It's an additional handout.
I was asked last time to provide the year-to-date budget report update from the 27th of February. There's a one-pager here, which is the revenue. We're still expecting one more payment from the towns for the operating assessments and for the non-mandated busing, which comes early April. All the capital has been paid from both towns. You go about halfway down, we have 5 more months for Chapter 70. Medicaid comes in quarterly, so we expect at least one more payment, and sometimes at the end of June, we'll get another payment. The charter school reimbursement is also monthly. The Chapter 71 transportation reimbursement is, we get one in January and one in June. The homeless transportation, typically we get in June, but last year we didn't get it till July, so I'm hoping that we'll get that before the end of June. If you look at the interest income, we're ahead of the game, but we're about halfway, another 5 payments or so. And then the last 2, the circuit breaker and the transfer for unreserved surplus, which is actually the excess and deficiency. I'll make those entries at the end of June before we close out the year. Any questions?
Anyone have any
Revenue piece?
questions?
So in the year-to-date expenditures, I would just want to bring to your attention, I sound like a broken record, but if you look on page 7, about halfway down the page, district-wide tuition to other schools, that's actually Recovery High Schools. So that's over by just over $13,000. I mentioned last time on page 8 about the middle of the page, under the salary reserve. Those is over as well due to the fact of retirements, unexpected retirements this year. And page 9, top of the page, starting with the 4th down, those are the special education accounts that Jeff spoke to you about on Monday night. That is actually the contracted services, the legal, the transportation, and the out-of-district tuition are all over. The total is just over $600,000.
Anyone have any questions? Jeff or George or Christine, it's probably a question for Jeff and George. Why are we just over $600,000? So everyone in the gallery will know on sped.
So, out of district, I mean, we budgeted X amount of dollars right now. In the FY20 budget, we're already up $1 million based upon the figures that we have. It's a few move-ins who are already committed to a collaborative. Transportation costs range between $250 a day, back and forth. That's one of the cheapest, to $400 a day, depending on the company that we use. It just depends on the level of service that we need to deliver to our students. We have had some move-ins, we have had some move-outs, but we've also experienced a couple of residentials, which are heavy-ticket items this year that I think, you know, are very appropriate, but it's coming at a difficult time.
Fred?
If you could explain, because obviously we're overspending, you know, what we've anticipated, exactly how we come up with the money to meet the obligation.
Sure. Well, the superintendent froze the budget. I'm not sure what, sent that out last week, I believe, correct? That's right. So if you look at some of the other lines here that still have money available budget, it's currently frozen right now unless it's an emergency situation, and that will be decided by the superintendent and the assistant superintendent. So the long and short of it, that hopefully that money will make up some of this money to offset.
And we could also take money from the circuit breaker reimbursement that is expected to pay this year's bill from encumbrances, so.
Or in the last resort is E&D.
E&D,
Right.
correct. Last
Circuit
resort.
breaker can cover some of this special education overage. But it's a moving target. It's only
But-
March, so we could have a child leave, or we could have a child that we don't have to transport anymore.
Right. And the difficulty in budgeting for special education is that, all of a sudden, we got good word today that instead of one placement, it was a different, which is less expensive. So you don't know where that is. So to really plan what the needs of your students are a year ahead of time is challenging. So I think in the future, the special ed budgets on both transportation and out of district are going to be off, either one way or the other. If we had 3 move-ins or move-outs this week, it would change drastically.
But, and one of the points I'm trying to make, though, is, so the circuit breaker, so we'd be borrowing from monies we'd normally allocate for next year
Correct.
to go
Correct.
towards sped.
Correct.
Correct.
To pay this year.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, so.
Fallen behind,
In other words, E&D becomes that much more important,
potentially, yes.
you know, to be that safety net to us.
Potentially, yes. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
As far as the budget discussion, again, I want to thank you, the committee, for going forward with the amount requested on Monday at a 15.1% increase for both towns as an assessment. We do have a meeting, or I have a meeting next Tuesday with Mr. Lynham and Mr. McHugh to discuss finances, to see if we can come up with something or find out what page we're all on. That's Tuesday at 9:30 at the Whitman Town Hall. We are, as a committee, invited to the FinCom meeting of the 26th of March. If folks plan to attend, we will post to make sure, and Michelle is going to be there to take minutes for us as well, and that's at 7:15. That meeting is specifically for the finances of Whitman and also our capital. So that is the message that I got from Mr. Anderson. So let Michelle know if you would like to be there. I say we're going to post anyway, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah.
It's a small room. I don't know if we're going to move to a bigger room. It was standing room only last time we were there. The other piece in your packet, I just wanted to share on budget, and I had a conversation today with Tom Scott. Tom Scott is the executive director of the Mass Superintendents Association, and all superintendents were invited, and it's in your packet. And school committee, I don't know if that's a formal invitation to school committee or not, but the Joint Committee on Education will be holding a hearing on the 3 school finance bills next Friday in the Gardner Auditorium at the State House. Starts at 10 a.m. Tom asked me if I was going to speak. I'm undecided right now. I think I'm going to try to jump in and talk necessarily on Chapter 70, a touch. If the proposed amendments going on Chapter 70, that's not going to affect us as much as legislation as far as unfunded and underfunded mandates. And I talked to Tom about that today. And there is some discussion with different legislators about transportation reimbursement for special education. We get 0. I said 2%, 10%, 50% would be great for us. But that's the angle if I do end up speaking, and I don't know how many superintendents are going to want to speak, and I don't know the patience of the legislators that are there, and how long the meeting's going to go for. But George and I are going to plan on attending next Friday. We'll be out report back to the committee what the feel is and where they go from there. But I wanted to share with you this invitation. If you have concerns or you want us to try to bring feedback, either on the record or off the record there, I'm more than willing to do that. So folks can discuss it here, or you could give me a phone call about your thoughts.
I do know that it is quote-unquote out there amongst various groups to be able to give testimony on that date. So it's the opportunity to be heard.
Testimony is going to be limited to 3 minutes, so, you know, I'm pretty quick. We're not getting what we need, period, you know? But I don't know the detail. I'm not as educated in Chapter 70 as some of our superintendents are, and I'd like to do that, but I am pretty educated in the mandates and how it's affecting our district. And I can speak very clearly about the programs that we will lose if we don't start getting some assistance from what we have to do. And I have some analogies for them as well, about funding. So we will be there. Again, I don't know if that's an on-the-record or an off-the-record conversation with folks, but I plan on having some conversations with our locals as well and other legislators in the area just to get that word out. And I know from what the executive director said today, I'm not the only one who's feeling the pinch of the underfunded and unfunded mandates. It just is hitting us pretty right between the eyes this year. You know, other districts have been hit before. We're getting hit this year. That's all I have for budget.
Any questions for Jeff before we move on? Okay. We have to revisit the Hanson Capital Project warrant article. And the vote is to remove the Town of Hanson 2019 Annual Town Meeting warrant article as capital item for kitchen equipment, tilting skillet for the Indian Head School in the amount of $14,200, which was previously voted and adopted by the school committee on February 27, 2019. The explanation is the food service director is seeking an alternative solution and working with the Town of Hanson Green Communities for grant funding to purchase a steam kettle as the replacement. I'd entertain a motion to
So moved.
Second.
discussion. Anything that's going to save us 14.2, I think we're probably in favor of. All those in favor? Thank you. Now, we need to vote a revision, and Michelle can explain kind of why the amount's gone up, putting you on the heat.
Oh, well, I don't know why the amount's going up, that would be Christine.
I know.
I only wrote the language of it.
Just the
Come on,
Hanson
Chris.
Middle Havoc.
Christine.
It's just the Hanson Middle Havoc Phase 2?
Phase 2, correct.
Phase 2?
So we put it out to bid, and we got 2 bids on February 28th. We only received 2 bids. And so this is if we were going to do the whole entire project, which has alternate, because the first bid, the base bid has already been approved at last town meeting in the spring of $500,000. So if we were to do all 4 alternates, which the first alternate is to add splits to the art room, music room, which are room 117, 120, and 121. Alternate 2 would be added splits to all of the first floor classrooms. Number 3 would be replace the air handling unit in the office area. And alternate 4 would be to tie units into the whole entire building management. So the total of that would require an increase of $675,000. So it would be, you voted the 500 for the Phase 2, now we're asking you to approve $675,000, which includes the designer fee as well as a contingency.
The long and the short term of this is it went up $175,000 when we put it up to bid.
Right, and we're going to bond it, so Donna Hanson's already aware of this.
Christian, what was the?
So-
Sorry, Bob. So written,
Before we discuss it, Mike, let's, please.
I'd like to make a motion, we amend a motion adopted on the February 27th, 2019 meeting to revise by striking 500,000 and inserting 675,000.
Someone want to second
Second.
that? Mike?
so we originally voted $500,000 at town meeting last year
Correct.
for
Phase 1.
Phase 1. So we went out to bid with an adult, two adults?
4,
4.
yes, the ones that I just mentioned.
So did we bid as one thing as for the 500,000?
Yes,
And what did that come in at?
That came in at 407,
Okay.
but we also have the design fee of 29,000,
So we're still under the 500 for
under the
original.
500, correct.
You all set, Mike?
Well, no, so then now you're going back, we're gonna go back to the voter and ask for,
That's if they, if the voters decide that they want to do the whole entire building. Otherwise, the base bid, we're okay because we came in under the 500,000. And then we'll have a little bit for contingency for phase one.
So it's an add-on, okay.
so how much would the ad be
175.
to do the entire building?
To do the whole entire building?
Would be,
A little under 2.
675,000 plus the 500,000, 1,175,000.
no, so you go back and you're asking for $675,000
Correct.
more
Yes,
to do the whole.
right,
So if the town says no, we'd still complete phase one.
correct.
You good?
Yes.
Thank you. Fred?
And that was my question, were we looking for the difference from the original to 675, or were we looking for an additional? So
Right.
I just want
So,
clarification.
the total is 1,175,000 to do the whole entire building.
And this would be at the option of the Hanson town meeting and their
Correct.
taxpayers?
Right.
Yeah, that'd be phase two.
And we're going to bond it, so the only effect in 2020 would be an interest payment. And then in 2021, I'd work with Todd to determine the schedule of how the town of Hanson is going to pay us back.
Okay, so the district would take the bond.
Yes, just like we do for all the other capital projects that we bond. But they have to agree to it. You as a committee has to vote that you agree to let the district borrow the money, and then it goes to town meeting floor in Hanson, and they have to agree to pay it.
When we originally did it, were we only looking at one specific portion? In
Yes.
other words, why are we asking them to increase?
Because we're going to the second phase, so we figured if we put it out to bid and did the whole building, we would get a better price than doing phase one, and then 2 years from now, putting out phase two, which is the first floor plus the other alternates that I just mentioned. We would get a better price if we did it as a whole than as if we waited and did it later. It would probably, we would know it would cost more money to do it in 2 phases versus giving one contractor the whole job.
Okay.
Mike?
Is the same bidder on both, with all these, the low
Yes,
bidder?
the low bidders.
Who is it?
Thomas E. Snowden Incorporated.
Okay.
Ernie, do you have something to add?
Mike?
Please.
I can see there's additional questions. When Christine and I sat down with the engineer, we kind of surveyed, well, actually, we do have a survey of the building. Where are the hot spots? Where are the places that draw a lot of humidity? So what we've done is, by putting the alternates together, we've given the Finance Committee selectmen options. Our alternate one, we can stop at alternate one, whatever that cost is. If the selectmen and the Finance Committee said we can only afford up to alternate one, we've done due diligence, because during our survey, we sat down with the engineer, so we said, where are the problem areas? And they're identified by the alternates. So when we go through the building, and like Christine had said, it would be beneficial financially to do the entire building at one time, obviously. But the prices we got, we felt as though, from original quotes we were getting to the bid, were very, very good, because we bid it at the right time. We got some pretty good contractors, and for us, we've given the selectmen and the Finance Committee a menu to choose from. And if they stop at alternate 2, we're fine with that. And we'll come back another time, and we'll rebid the whole, whatever's left, alternate 2, 3, and 4. But at least we're going to give them a menu to choose from. All right?
That a little bit, that satisfy, Fred?
Yeah, my line of thinking is, if we're gonna do the whole thing, in other words, they've already approved 500,000. So why wouldn't we have said, okay, 500,000 plus we have these alternates we'd like to do, and offer to the town in one whole package, instead of, now that they're already in, so to speak, for 500, now we're going back a second time, almost. That's,
If I could clarify that?
okay.
We asked the town, because we knew there was a problem, we asked the town to fund a survey, which they did. Through that survey, they identified the problems. through that problem, survey, we put a budget together to do one area. After meeting with the Finance Committee, actually the Facility Subcommittee, we identified that that's where we're going to attack the second floor. From that survey and sitting down with the engineer and getting numbers together, that's when we put the menu together, 1 through 4, to give the town an option to pick. So I think we've been upfront with the town Finance Committee that this is what we found, and we'd like to do, we'd like to do the whole thing, be quite honest with you, but we're going to allow them to find and look at what we have done the research on, and then make a decision on that. So it's been a 2-year process, probably going back 4 years in the capital expenditure, but it's been a 2-year process that we've been through trying to get this, to the point where we could bid it and get serious numbers from it, and now we have them. Right?
Anyone else? I have a motion, the second. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, MSBA statement of interest.
So I'm asking the committee, or looking for guidance from the committee. I've asked Ernie Sandlin to start looking at a statement of interest for the Whitman Middle School 5 through 8. So Ernie has some information for the committee, but I'm looking to make it official from the voice of the committee that you'd like us to move forward with a statement of interest for new Whitman Middle School 5 through 8. This is just the process, what we have to do to get in the queue for MSBA. Ernie?
Statement of interest for the state of Massachusetts, it starts January 2nd, I think, January 3rd. It ends, we have to have all documents in by April 12th. There's votes and there's a whole bunch of information that we have to go through. And I mentioned it to a couple of people, why are we doing a statement of interest when we're in a budget problem? So the answer, quite frankly, there's a process we got to go through. There's a time frame that we got to go through. We're trying to meet all those time frames. The state keeps on chugging along. If we were to miss a year, the process that we go through, like I just said to you, starts January 3rd. They get the documents April 12th. They don't make a decision until December. And then there's a round of meetings that will happen. They'll send out a group of people that if we get on their list to look at our documentation, to review the building, and then from there, there's another cycle we're going to go through. So we could be 2 years out before we even know what we're going to be doing. So I think for us, we're good stewards in trying to identify what's going on at Whitman Middle. So for the statement of interest, when you start the process, Jeff has to agree to let me in there, which he did. And so there's 8 categories that you look at. In each category, there could be 5,000 characters, not more than 5,000 characters, not less than 1,500 in identifying issues with that building. And in each item that you choose, and I'll give you the items, 1 through 8, replacement or renovation of building which is structurally unsound, elimination of existing severe overcrowding, prevention of loss accreditation, prevention of severe overcrowding, replacement, renovation, modernization of school facility, short-term enrollment, replacement of additional or obsolete building, and a transition from court-ordered approval. So there's, when you click on one item, we happen to pick number 5. There's another category that comes up on that, and there's information that you have to supply to the state. And that information that we've started already could be from a brief building history. Whitman Middle School opened in '72. There was renovations done in 1997, and the boilers were replaced. I'm just giving you, some of the information I put together. Boilers were replaced in 2007. Total building square footage, and again, they expect it to be not less than 1,500, but not more than 5,000 characters. So you have to put a lot of information in there, and you look at the history. So it's a story that we're writing about, as a district, about Whitman Middle. And then building envelope, you have to provide, again, not less than 1,500, not more than 5,000 characters, the building envelope. So you have to do a lot of research. You actually almost have to dig into that building deep to find out what's going on in that building. because the plans and specification from this statement of interest that was done, I think, almost 20 years ago, and when you look at it, it says replace the lockers throughout the building. Guess what? The lockers weren't replaced. Replaced a lot of the exterior facade. Guess what? That wasn't replaced. Remove and replace the roof, the existing roof. Guess what? That wasn't replaced. So now what we're doing is we're doing the research and identifying. The state was told that we were going to do this 20 years ago. We're identifying that it wasn't done, and this is the reason we want a new building. But there's a process we go through, and this is the beginning of it. And once we get all that information prior to us submitting it, obviously you'll get a copy of it. It'll be good reading, nighttime reading, Saturday night, that you'll find out what Whitman Middle is all about. There's some inefficiencies there. When it was all electric heat in 72 and 1986 when they converted to hot water system. So there was a lot of things that weren't done correctly when they did that conversion that we're living with today. So we're going to tell that story, and once that story gets to the state, they'll read it, they'll say, okay, Whitman Middle, this is what we're going to do. You know, we're going to put you off for 2 more years, we're going to put you off for a year. But at least we start the process with Whitman Middle. Okay?
One of the reasons I asked Ernie to give this here for the committee is because of something we talked about at facilities subcommittee, or facilities last month, was the concern about the structure of Whitman Middle and some of the mold issues that we've had. So we are being able to work through that, but this is a priority for us to bring to the committee to say, yes, move forward with the statement of interest. I'd rather not push this off another year, because it could be 3 years before we get into the queue. I'd like to see where we stand. No harm, no foul at this point. What they can do is come back and say, you have 2 years to develop your funding for a feasibility study, or it's open for you in the next 6 months or a year or whatever. But without taking this leap, and if you've been in, and we can all go and take a tour of Whitman Middle School, it's getting old really quick, and it's not efficient. And, you know, he lived it for a lot of years. Walking through, there are some places that they don't fit 2019 standards for a school.
Part of, I have other questions, I'm just going to make a statement. Being through a few statement of interest personally from this committee, or being on the school committee, this could take 5 years. We don't even know where the list is, what they're accepting, what there isn't accepting. This is a first stage step. And the commitment really, really comes way down the road when you have to do a feasibility study. That's when the dollars and cents come, and the town physically can say, we're not ready to do a feasibility study, and push the can down the road. That could be as quick as 2 years, or as far away as 5 or 6 or 7 years, because none of us have looked at the list to see how many districts. When Whitman Hanson built this, I think Fred was on the building committee and I was on the school committee. They produced a list, and it was a difference in time, and they've updated every single way that they do SOI, statements of interest now. They've changed it. They've also changed the funding sources and the percentages and what you do as you go along. There's a lot to it. So this is a step. This is not committing to any dollars and cents. I want everyone to be clear about this is nothing committed to dollars and cents. It's a way down the road process. Fred, then Bob, and
Two things. One, in writing the feasibility, the statement of interest, use the word partial, because Whitman Middle has never had a full renovation. It's only had partial renovations. It's never gotten the full, what it was supposed to, ever. Number two, and just to be clear of the process, it's a statement of interest which would then give us the green light, hopefully, for a feasibility study. That's when the town votes to spend money on a study as to what is best. And we work with architects and engineers. They identify all the deficiencies of the building, and then they make their recommendations. So, you know, we're not, you know, shoveling to the ground, doing anything is very, very many years off. even in a best-case scenario, feasibility study takes a couple of years now anyways. So,
Ernie?
Oh, no, I agree with, I talked to Kathleen Sullivan yesterday. She's the second kahuna at MSBA. And when I look at that person, the history that she has with us, she went through that whole McQuon process, Indian Head process. She knows the district very well. We're in good shape as far as documentation. They know us, they understand us. Obviously, they supported us in this building. So that process, it's good that we're starting the process. That's all she's saying. It's important that we start the process, and she wishes that more communities would do the same thing. So once the process starts, we're all aware of it. And I think what it does, Fred, and committee members, it kind of identifies for us capital projects that we need to do. We did it with McQuon. Once we got the statement of interest for McQuon, we identified a lot of things that needed to be done. And it came to the town, and they realized that the capital expenditures versus the putting a new building up, so it kind of brings a balance. It brings all those things to the forefront. And we have to identify those when it comes towards the end part of the statement of interest. What are the real expenses to make that building whole?
Well, another thing it also does, Ernie, with the capital plan coming forward in Whitman, it identifies to the town what the cost is going to be long-term for that building, whether it's a renovation, a half renovation, a full renovation, or a full replacement. It gives them the long-term effect of what it is and identifies it.
And one of the items that she said, and I contribute this to Christine Succo, our capital plan is solid. They have a copy of our capital plan, and she said 40% to 50% of communities out there, school districts out there, do not have a capital plan. I think Jeff said it tonight. Do not have an active capital plan. We have a pretty good solid capital plan. We talked to the towns, just like we talked about with the HVAC. We've made the towns aware of what the issues are. So it's good to hear it from the other side.
Bob?
Yeah, I have two questions. One's for Jeff. You said 5 through 8. Is that to match Hanson
That
Middle
would-
School? So curriculum and everything works?
Correct. So when we made the shift of closing McQuon and moving Hanson Middle School to a 5 through 8, I think moving into this, the goal is to have equity in both towns. That means teaching styles, report cards, curriculum the same. If we were to move to a new middle school, it should be, for equity's sake, a 5 through 8 building.
Excuse me. My second question, probably a question should be asked way down the line. Ernie, if that school does get approved, what about classroom size? Is there a state standard? Are the classrooms going to be smaller than they are now? Or?
I can tell you what's over there because I've done the measurements. And the standard classroom would probably be around 800 square feet. What's happened over there is we have rooms that are all different sizes. So we've identified those in this document. Again, it's a working document. It asks me to please provide detailed description of educational spaces within the facility. This description and number of sizes and square feet of classroom description of science rooms, labs, including ages and most recent updates. We haven't done any updates in the science labs over there. We added carpet to one of the rooms. And a description of the cafeteria, gym, auditorium. So within the middle school contains 43 educational spaces. There are 38 typical classrooms ranging from 750 square feet to over 900 square feet. I think the standard that the state will have for a middle school is between 750 and 800 square feet. But we have rooms that are all over the place over there. So to continue, the average standard classroom size is 825, specialty classroom, music, instruction 2, art room 1, instructional technology 2, group technology, instruction 1, are also part of the core educational spaces. So through that evaluation, we'll come up with, we'll identify it for ourselves. We'll go, holy mackerel, is this?
Yeah, I guess my concern is, are you saying that between 8 and 850 is the state requirement?
Well, that would be the standard. That's probably pretty close to what's here.
'Cause I'm just, what I would hate to see is the new school built and the classroom shrunk. And then you have large kids in the classroom.
Fred?
I do know that when we built this school, they had very specific guidelines, and even to the type of classroom that you were teaching in, for the size of it. So I would assume the state standards,
Well,
would be
Right,
whatever they are.
right, but my concern would be, depending on how many students are in the classroom, that size. So, you know, only because I lived through that, and I went from elementary school to middle school, did renovations, the classroom that I went to was much smaller than I had before, and you have 25 students. It gets cramped, so I wouldn't want to see that. If you're building a brand-new school, that they lose space and storage space.
Yeah, that's always the problem. The state's not gonna pay for storage space.
Part of that is also, Bob, as we move forward, if we ever get to that particular part of it, we'll have to put a committee together to make sure that that is also brought to an architect when the feasibility comes. If I remember correctly, when we were doing Guan Indian Head, and we sat at this table for months and months and months going over it, classroom sizes and fighting that battle, because that was brought up then, and I think it might have been you that brought it up, actually. So, Michelle, do you want us to vote this?
Motion?
I'd entertain a motion to move forward the statement of interest for Whitman Middle.
Second.
Discussion? Well, sure, come on up. You're gonna tell us who you are, where you live, John.
John Kane, 31 Forest Street. When does the debt exclusion for the high school come off the books? Is it 20?
8, no, 6 more.
27.
And that might even fit in that timeline. It could take that long, Sean. Thank you. I have a motion to go to the SOI, the process of starting an SOI process. Also, we need to add a couple of articles to the Whitman town meeting. Printed in your pack. Does everybody have one? Unless everybody has one, it's worth reading it. If you want to read it, everybody got it? Right? Everybody else? Article is $7,800 to reimburse for replacement of the rooftop unit. And the other one is to reimburse for the building of a boiler stack at Whitman Middle School for $11,700. Discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. School calendar. Mr. Simonet.
So, in your packet, we've talked about this for a couple of months. We have 2 versions of the school calendar, one with an extended winter break, Christmas break, and one without. The extended Christmas break extends the vacation from the Friday, the 20th of December, and students would return back the Monday, 6th of January. The other calendar has students returning back on January 2nd. We wanted to bring this to the committee's attention so that parents could plan well ahead of time if we were to do an extension, or if we would remain kind of consistent that we always come back on the 3rd. Or the 2nd. So it's up to the committee. I know different folks have gotten feedback from the parents. I've heard a few different things, kind of right in the middle, half and half. So that's why you guys get to make those decisions.
Chris?
Yes, should just share the feedback I've gotten. I spoke to several, probably about a dozen parents. Almost the vast majority, everyone of the 11, I'd say they all favored coming back earlier. And really their thoughts were around the impacts on the kids being ill for such a long period of time, impact on parents, so for those that are employed, 2 weeks vacation time, 2 full weeks, that's a lot. And the last was just around the fact that, we do start usually before Labor Day. Snow days are unforeseen, so start before Labor Day, and then with the break, the snow days, and getting out. That was just the feedback that I got.
Has to happen before Labor Day, correct?
Right.
Okay, just making sure. All right. Through me through with that.
And I've already shared it with the superintendent, with Bennett. I've gotten some feedback. How
Does everybody understand exactly what Chris is talking about? I mean, I know it's on the calendar, I'll get to you in a second, but I know it's on the calendar. One choice would bring us back on Thursday and Friday, the 2nd and the 3rd, and the other choice would bring us back after on the 6th. It would make the break longer. The advantage to doing it in the shorter time is what Chris is talking about. If there's snow days, it won't move you so far into June. That shortened. The other one is letting it go forward and gambling with it. Fred?
Same thing seems to be a topic around town. And the one thing that goes through my mind is our students are still going to be going for 180 days. And that was some of the conversation I had with parents. You know, teachers teach 180 days, students go to school 180 days. So it's the same amount of time, but it's just the way it's divided in. And after saying that, still the same reaction. You know, my kids don't need to be out that long. Rather see them come back. Rather see them, you know, because all of a sudden you sneeze and you're in February vacation. And this year, it seemed like it was very quick. That February was all of a sudden right upon us and they were on vacation. So I don't know if it's the same 11 or 12. I didn't hear, you know, quite that.
One did say skip the break altogether.
You know, so, you know, but that's what I'm hearing.
I too have
Ally?
been hearing the same thing. I think if we were to do away with a February or April vacation, I think it would sit a lot better with parents to have the 2 weeks off in December, January. But there's already, I mean, we have 3 vacations, boom, 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 just like that. I understand looking for it. I absolutely get it, but I think if myself, if my daughter was still in Whitman Hanson, I'd say, oh God, no.
Mr. Cullity?
I have a question. During this break, vacation, is the school shut down?
No, I mean, there would be no students necessarily in the
The
elementary schools.
buildings are still open?
Buildings are relatively open. One of the things that we test, because the question came up, wow, if we want to take our kids on a vacation, you could leave before Christmas or after Christmas, those days, and still have 7 days somewhere, and judging on flights. So those are conversations that have come up, and this is why we brought it to the committee, because we wanted you to solicit feedback from the constituents and parents about, should we close those 2 days or not? So talk to Ernie, and he's like, if it's cold, we can shut those elementary schools, those additional 2 days, and 0 degrees, we probably save about $10,000 to $15,000. But if it's those numbers that we've had, flip-flops, there's no difference. So we're indifferent to this because we've heard both back and forth. But that's what I wanted folks in the committee.
That's my concern. If it's shut down, might as well make it to 2 weeks. But if it's going to be open anyways for activities and things, short apart, you know, people are already in here.
There's no financial piece to that
Yeah.
necessarily. So.
We're not saving
Okay.
money, so.
No.
That's my question.
Mr. Bush?
I'd like to make a motion, we accept the calendar where we return on January 2nd of 2020. And as an off note, let me be the one who handles any shutdowns, because I have experience.
Wow.
But that's not part of the motion.
Second.
Yes, you have, my friend.
Somebody,
Yes, you have.
would somebody second that?
Second, you got it, second.
Okay. Mr. Small?
Well put, Steve.
And I just want to throw this out there, and I don't know possibilities, et cetera. We mentioned it briefly in a meeting a few years back. Can we get rid of February? Try to do something in March. I know if parents wanted to go away, they'd be able to get much better deals on airfare doing something in the March timeframe from the Boston area because everyone else is February and April, and the airlines jack up the rates. I don't know how that sits for families, that have different responsibilities, and I'd be worried, about that, but it might be something to investigate for the future as well.
I think that's a topic that's been discussed, and one of the concerns that I have with that, just as far as my teaching staff, because they have families too, and if their kids are home over February break, I'd be concerned about that piece of that, because that's the big piece. If all our localities on the South Shore, south of Boston, said, we're gonna do this, then yeah. But right now, that would be a concern of mine, just as I proposed to the committee, even such the blizzard bag piece of it. Yep. I want to be consistent with all of our locals so that our teachers aren't put in a position to choose between family or whatever, or daycare for their kids because they're home. So that, that's a piece of that. I think it's an ongoing discussion. Certain towns in the Commonwealth have removed that. They've seen some success, and they've also seen some, well, their folks are still taking days, or the kids are still taking February break off because their friends are going skiing. So, and they've already booked. So it's a conversation piece. Nothing's out of the realm of a conversation, but contractually, that's what we have right now, at least for the next couple of years.
I was almost afraid that Ally was making the motion because I couldn't hear her to take those two off. And I was going to say, contractually, we'd have to bargain that in a contract.
Right.
Okay.
But it is a futuristic thing that it may be thinking out of the box and shortening up a school year. Anyone else before I go to the gallery? Go ahead.
Cindy again, fifth grade teacher at Hanson Middle School. And I just want to throw out there that if you put in the factor of parents considering vacations, they go anyway, the way we are now. I have students out all the time, weeks at a time, regardless of whether it's vacation. So I'm just throwing that out there. It won't make a difference. Because they fly out when it's less expensive anyway.
It's true. It is true. Absolutely.
I have a motion, a second.
I just wanted to ask the committee to make the decision based on education and not vacation. I haven't heard this point yet, and I'm not a teacher, but maybe I speak for some teachers. And I don't want to make this a debate about MCAS or standardized testing, but learning in the classroom is very important. And I believe every additional day that you can put into instruction and learning prior to those standardized tests is important. So shifting 2 days from January to June will take away some classroom instruction time.
Mr. Boyce.
And one more thing, and thank you, Don. If we want to have a district-wide lesson on January 2nd, 2020, that will be the 60th anniversary of JFK announcing that he's running for president in 1960.
Are you
So that
volunteering,
could be a
Steve?
good way for us to all come back.
Are you putting that seminar
I was
on?
gonna say, you
I will,
volunteering?
and I'm on a roll, so.
You might have some pull there.
That would be a great district-wide thing.
Some artifacts from the museum? and-
Wait a minute.
That's a field trip day, Steve.
All
right, great.
Field
Get
trip.
a little latitude to see if Mr. Boyce was volunteering tickets for the district.
I always do.
Last meeting, he wasn't here, he did.
One of our candidates in the audience, I invited as well. But it's always open to the schools and
Okay.
any members, staff members.
I have a motion, the second. And the motion, the second, just quickly, is for us to come back on January 2nd, which is Thursday. That is the motion. Anybody?
And you're accepting the whole calendar.
We're accepting the whole calendar.
And the whole calendar, yes.
That
thank you.
calendar with January 2nd being the return date. Is everybody good with that? Any further discussion?
I just have one quick
Ally?
question. What would the first day of school be, the 28th of August?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thanks.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay. There are no gifts other than Mr. Boyce's tickets.
Big field
We have
trip
a
that
field
day.
trip.
Big field trip that day.
Mr. Hayes?
We have a field trip. It's Decker. It's April 27th to May 1st, 2019. It's their annual trip. This year it's Orlando, Florida for the International Career Decker Conference. 2 students are going, 1 chaperone. They are not asking for a school nurse because... I'll get to that.
Yep, just making sure you knew.
So 2 students are going there, do not need a nurse because they provide emergency services at the conference. I'd entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Director of Student Services posting.
So as the committee knows, we appointed an interim director of student services in, I think, September, October. I'd like to post internally for the director of student services, and that's a school committee appointment. So I'm asking you to post it internally. I'm not seeing the need to do an external post at this point, and I'd like to post that so that we can move forward with a permanent student services director.
Second.
Any discussion? Sort of self-explanatory, makes sense to me. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Unanimous? Okay, committee reports. Warrant Subcommittee, we don't have anything, Michelle? Okay. Policy Subcommittee? No. Facilities and Capital Improvement Subcommittee, I know that we've discussed some of it at the meeting, but you guys met?
You pretty much, warrant articles is what we met about and prioritizing, and we'll be meeting obviously with the Whitman FinCom to go over the warrant articles, but that's pretty much it.
Legislative update? Fred?
You heard the 22nd, that Jeff was speaking about at the State House. Also, things are rolling along. Josh Cutler is filing a letter, and he is looking for co-sponsors from other legislators, asking that the minimum per pupil be increased to $100 for the FY20 budget. This would be a welcome difference to us to the tune of 370-something thousand, if it was to ever go through. Like anything, first he has the letter, has people co-sign to the letter, and then it goes into the budget, maybe an amendment on the budget, and we would hope that it would go through as written, or it can get dropped back a little bit, etc. But his efforts are very much appreciated. Other individual groups are lobbying the legislator to make what they feel are realistic differences in what they can control. For the instance, the special education transportation, that's a very hot topic right now, and it's something that people feel that headway can be made on, or at least some sort of reimbursement. Regional transportation, getting that fully funded. Circuit breaker getting more of a percentage. So there are people with laser focus trying to get us more money in the budget. Ultimately, we won't know probably till the end of June, July, what happens, but there are people out there, advocating and lobbying for us, and I'm lobbying as well, so.
Mr.
It
Chairman?
also should be noted, the last time this was increased, I think it was done at a school committee here, and it was sponsored by Josh Cutler, Senator Brady, and Representative Deal, and I believe it went to $50 or $55 the last time.
Correct, we went to 55.
So they had some success, so hooray, good. Thank Josh, great job. Any Bob, I'm sorry.
Fred, do you know if Representative Sullivan is also endorsing this proposal?
I have not spoken to her. I don't know if she's endorsing it. I know I've sent it over to her. I can't put words in her mouth, but I'd like to think that she would be co-signing onto it.
Thank you.
Well, if anyone's listening to this meeting tonight, give her a little nudge to get on the wagon train here and see if we can get something going for some funding, because That would benefit the school district about $384,000.
378.
Yeah.
Give or take a couple grand, but also Senator Brady, I haven't spoken to him. I've also sent it along to him as well.
I'm sure he will.
Okay. Any questions for legislative update? Thanks, Fred. Pilgrim area?
So unfortunately, we had to cancel our March 7th meeting. That would have been for last week. We do resume Thursday, April 4th.
Thank you, Mr. Boyce. Dates to remember, March 29th, early release, pre-K to 12 Professional Development Day. April 5th, early release, excuse me, pre-K to 12 Grading Day. April 10th, school committee meeting, 7 PM here at the high school. So please attend and share with your friends, and maybe we can all make a difference together. Believe it or not, small groups make big differences. Please come and support us. One that I can remember right offhand is the polar plunge. Still recovering from that. And last but not least, April 15th through the 19th, no school, spring recess week. So,
Mr. Hayes?
yes,
Also, we can't forget tomorrow night
Conley basket.
at the
getting
Whitman
there.
Middle School,
Live.
the Conley Basket Auction. Great event. I think they'll have food, a lot of great baskets, a lot of great things up for auction. It's a wonderful night, and it's for the Conley School, but it's at the Whitman Middle because it won't fit at the Conley. Probably next year they'll have to have it up here.
Late start tomorrow, Jeff?
okay, Ed.
Late start
Mr.
tomorrow
Hayes.
here?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes, just so the committee knows, unfortunately, I will not be able to attend the next meeting. I have a work function down in Falmouth.
All right. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, everyone.